on today's Edge of Wonder, part 2 of our conversation with Jordan Sather, where we'll discuss how unreal today's mainstream science is. We'll talk about the cult of scientism, and we'll ask questions like, why has the real research of brilliant scientists like Tesla and Russell been minimized and suppressed? What bombshell disclosures did they have that they said humans aren't ready for yet? And is this modern age leading us away from God? What is the electric universe, and how can we tap into it? And is this where lightsabers come from? All this and more on part 2 with Jordan Jordaka Sather.
And cue Skywalker and Solo. All right, people, let's launch this thing to the edge in 3, 2, Wonder.
You gave a really awesome presentation on science, and this is information that's out there that not a lot of people come across. You have a lot of really formed ideas about how science is functioning now and what it's done to us as a society, and it would be really great for you to tell our audience exactly what you think about that, because personally I just feel like I think science isn't as clean as people say. I think it's done a lot, just as much bad as it has done good in a lot of different ways. And it's up to us to educate ourselves on what that is and why. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, so first, just talking science in general, you just mentioned it's done a lot more bad than good. And what I think is a lot of the good that people think science has done really isn't that good. You know, we have people talking about, oh, the miracles of modern medicine. Well, why is cancer 1 in 2? Why is autism 1 in 50, 1 in 15 in some places, you know? Is it really miracles that we're having? Sure, it looks more advanced superficially, and maybe emergency medicine has gotten a lot better, but has medicine as a whole really gotten that much advanced or progressed that far? And we were talking earlier about fossil fuels, you know, we're still using cars and things like that. So science itself, I think they try to sell it. The deep state tries to sell science to the public as, yeah, it's so advanced, but it's really not. And we were discussing earlier about these suppressed researchers from the early 20th century that were looking at stuff like free energy that's well beyond what we have now. So science as a whole, it's not science. We're not using science these days. It's scientism. It's almost like a cult. You know, you start questioning science and you get all these people who are attached to their belief systems. They get all triggered and they get cognitive dissonance. They get angry at you. You know, that Mr. Smith effect happens where they've got to morph into Mr. Smith to defend the Matrix and shut down your free thinking, you know?
It's a really good analogy, actually.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, it really is.
There's been a lot of research suppressed. Now, we were talking about Tesla. He's had a lot of his research not just suppressed, but a very easy way that mainstream science brushes a lot of the more truthful stuff under the rug is just by not talking about it.
Exactly, because we've been really hitting this hard too with the whole science aspect, and it's almost like it's a way to, oh, this is over here. We're like, what about this? Like all this new technology, and it's, well, if this science over here doesn't acknowledge it, then they'll just shut it down. Like, nope, this is not proving it, or we don't acknowledge this, and
or if it affects a theory that will kind of destroy mankind's concept or make them question more, they'll put it into a bucket called problematica that keeps it away from the public. Right?
Because humans like to feel, or not humans, but their ego, our undeveloped egos, like to feel like we're in control. So we need ideas, even if they're completely illogical, but they make us feel good. They make us feel like we're in control and we know what's going on with this universe. Even if it's illogical and nonsensical, our egos tend to attach onto them. So it's very important to gain the courage to start thinking freely and questioning these things and understanding that we ain't in control. But then if you have that thought hit home in you, I'm not in control. Okay, I'm just gonna go with the flow then. Just ride the wave. I don't need to be in control. And in fact, life is kind of more bland if you're always in control, right? Because you're not learning that way. You're not growing. And all across the board, you know, medical, physical, political science, all the sciences.
Well, and I think that just goes with why they, you know, like the deep state aspect doesn't want us to understand even our own bodies, what we're capable of, how we all really have abilities beyond just this human body, because it's like they want to keep us sick, because then we depend on their science, we depend on their medicine, because if we really knew the potential of what we could do, we wouldn't need this stuff. We would be understanding it in a whole new way, on a whole different level, and be really connected to that, whatever it is, this divine source creator aspect of things. So and all of that would just fade away, but they want to cut us off from that.
They want us completely dependent on them. So they want us dependent on their pharmaceuticals, and by doing that, to get us dependent on all of their control systems, they utilize fear. So you're going to get sick, you're going to get a disease, whatever, you need this vaccine, this pill, this blah, blah, blah. Or you are worthless individual, your life doesn't mean anything, consciousness is just located in your brain, there's nothing outside that, so what are you going to do now if you think your life is worthless?
Go to Hawaii.
Go to Hawaii and party and drink and not do really anything with your life, but, you know.
Focus on material things, because
watch-
those make you feel great.
And watch CNN all day long.
Exactly, so they want us, it's fear is how they get us dependent on their control systems. And not just that, but talking of science, looking into the history of it is especially helpful in understanding how we got to this particular point. So our education systems in this country in the early 1900s were created by the banking families. The Rockefeller Institute, the Rockefeller Foundation, they created the General Education Board in 1902, and that's what essentially started setting up the foundations of what we have now. In so many scientists out there that are obsessed with book reading and mathematical formulas and getting into this sort of stuff, which is helpful, but at the same time, if that's all you do, it's very easy to misinform people that way because they don't actually experiment. When you get into experimentation and trying new things and seeing what works instead of looking at a book your whole life, well then you're going to start experimenting with stuff that helps you realize what information you're reading that might be wrong. This is what Nikola Tesla was doing. A quote of his, he basically said that scientists these days are getting into equation after equation with no basis in reality. They're not actually experimenting with anything and coming to more true conclusions and figuring out what's going on. And
it'd be like an artist, studying art history or how an artist paints, but then never painting. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
You're never going to get good, and you're never going to be a painter. I mean, you really can look at it that way, right? Like, these are techniques. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
You get, and we could talk in the same vein of this in the health realm. We have doctors who are reading vaccine information, book after book, that's telling them, oh, they're safe for the public, they're harmless, we need them for our bodies, all this stuff. When it comes to the actual experience, we have doctors out there who are literally seeing their patients become autistic right after their vaccine, or parents, the same thing, and they're actually getting experiences that are completely contradicting what they read. And it's starting to wake them up. They're like, why? What's going on? What's going on with our education systems that's causing this disconnect?
Well, and I just realized this when you were saying that, but that analogy is like perfect, because if you look at what Chinese medical doctors were doing in the ancient past, it was this observation of the earth and humans' existence in the earth, and then everything was this like experiment in a way where you were like trying these herbs with the human body, coming to these conclusions, passing them down, figuring out how the organs in your body related to different energy and different things. And so it was like actually in a way a much more complete system, because they were actually doing,
they had to try.
Yeah.
You know, 2,000 years ago they had no medical authority and research books and universities to go study at. Like, they had to try.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some failures along the process.
Oh, no, there were.
Yeah, but they're learning, you know, this Ayurvedic medicine, or these ways that have stood the test of time. Ayurvedic medicine developed 3,000 years ago that's still around now, and it's doing much more good for people oftentimes than the allopathic method.
Or I mean, if you think of acupuncture, really think about it for a minute. How in the world did they know that? Where did they get that from? Some of these things go even beyond just experimentation, but these people were like, they were like using abilities that the human body naturally has, and then like figuring out a way, like I've gotten acupuncture done because I had to do some branding work for an acupuncturist before, and it literally felt like there was electricity flowing through my body once he put the pins in certain places, and it was like for the next couple of days I kept feeling it. It wasn't just, and I mean, this guy's doing things like acupuncture facelifts. Like, you don't even need to get anything done. You just do the pins in the right way, you know the effect it's going to have, and then these women are looking, they're like 65, 70, and they look like they're 40. And you're just like, gee, this is what homeopathic natural stuff does, right? And we don't even know about it. Like,
well, and also to go off of that, especially if you look at the Chinese culture, and same thing with like Native Americans and all kinds of the like older cultures, they all believe that the earth provided everything that they needed. So if someone has an illness, there's something on this earth that would heal that illness, no matter what it is, through plants or whatever, And with the modern medicine, it's just like, it's kind of corrupted all of this stuff.
It's almost modern everything,
yeah,
right? It's taken us so far away from natural processes, so far away from God, if you want to think of that.
Yes.
And why wouldn't God or the universe or nature provide everything necessary for us to grow and evolve? The point is, we have to figure it out. We incarnate into this experience forgetting, so we have to learn and remember it, but it's like, your immune system's not complete, so you need vaccines to help it. Why would God put us here with incomplete immune systems? I don't understand.
Sometimes humans just go to this extreme and
Totally
forget to keep looking and
Well,
developing.
greed comes in and all these different things, but then, I mean, like exactly what you were saying, it's like, oh, you need this, but then they're purposely like using chemtrails, right? They're constantly making us sick, and then it's like, here, you need medicine, you're this, and then it creates all different kinds of like anxiety, depression, all these things, and it's like, well, here's more pills that you need to be on, you need this, and it's just like, it's this whole mess of stuff, and it's like now we're trying to push through all of this, and like you were saying, get back to God, get back to our original divine beings, that who we really could be if we really break through and understand that we are very powerful.
Stay tuned for more from the edge.
I want to talk a little bit about plasma. I mean, yesterday when you were presenting, you took some time and you explained how plasma works and light, and it was like really intense.
That was just mind blowing, because I've never heard that before. So I really would like to give you some time.
Totally. So in my presentation yesterday, I was doing some talking about Tesla. In my view, when you're talking Tesla, after you figure out some of what Tesla was doing, I think the next step should be looking into an individual named Walter Russell. Walter Russell is definitely not as well known as Tesla was, but his research pretty much goes hand in hand, and Walter Russell actually met Tesla a couple times, and Nikola Tesla read some of Walter Russell's books and said that humanity's not ready for this, essentially. So,
Yeah, he said humanity will be ready for this in 1,000 years.
Pretty much.
That's what you have,
from
right?
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
Right. So Walter Russell, okay, let's look at his research. Walter Russell was really like a jack of all trades. He's sometimes called the modern day Da Vinci because he was a illustrator, he was a builder, he was a sculptor. He made huge sculptures of very famous figures like Mark Twain and various politicians. Walter Russell was a scientist, a philosopher. He just did all this stuff. And he ended up becoming fed up with mainstream science, as many of these individuals do. So he wrote a few books and started doing some diagrams, some sketches, some research. And Walter Russell was essentially saying that everything is light. And that actually goes hand in hand with much ancient scripture we have. God is light. God is everything. Everything is light. What we see coming from these lamps are just emanations. They're just different aspects of that light that we can see with the rods and cones in our eyes. But that's not the only light there is. Like, everything is light. Walter Russell, along with Tesla, also says a lot of information that runs along the lines of what's been termed the electric universe model. Basically, how we've been describing that gravity is not the force that makes our cosmos go round, like mainstream science likes to tell us. It's actually electricity. Electricity and gravity go hand in hand, and electricity is everywhere. Plasma is everywhere. Even mainstream science has to sort of admit that 99.999% of our universe, basically 100% of it, is plasma in different manifestations of that plasma, whether it's matter, whether it's a force field that we're experiencing, or something to that effect. And looking back to ancient mythology, what they were saying thousands of years ago, looking at the way plasma forms, how you detect plasma, it shows up in very specific geometrical arrangements, very specific forms. And some of the etchings that we see on cave paintings and other things like that from thousands of years ago, from all around the world, from Americas and South Americas and Europe and Asia, that is the exact same, essentially replica, archetypal construct of plasma formations. It's like, how did the ancients know this? What did they know? We're just talking about acupuncture, but we can talk about their physical understandings as well. How did they know how plasma forms? How did they know how to demass and levitate, or not necessarily levitate, but make much, much lighter 10-ton stones, you know? As if slaves built the pyramids with, what, trees and ropes and stuff. Doesn't make sense. And pulleys. No. They actually found a way through sound vibration, however that was, to demass, to make these 10-ton blocks more weightless and move them. You know, and it's, if you look into the coral castle phenomenon, coral castle is this structure that was built in Florida in the 1930s, I believe, by a man named Edward Lee Skalden. He was this engineer who started studying electromagnetism, and he built this castle. He called it Coral Castle out of stone.
Wow.
And if you go there, it has huge chairs, this massive table that's made out of stone that's this thick and like 30 feet long, weighs tons. It's got doors, it's got all this stuff made out of stone. How did he do that? He used the same basic sciences that the ancients did, in that he would utilize electromagnetism, basically sound vibrations, to alter the matter of the stone to make it much lighter. It actually makes it malleable too, so you can form the stone. That's how he created the table and the chairs. That's how the ancients created, like, the Sphinx, for instance. And if you look into kymatics, kymatics is using sound waves, or it's a modern phenomenon that shows how matter forms in particular ways based on electromagnetic waves. So, you know, you pump a sound wave on a plate with sand on it, and that sand takes a very specific sacred geometrical ratio. So sacred geometry is really showing us how energy flows, how energy moves, how these force fields operate, and how to spin these force fields, how to spin electromagnetism, and start playing around with the properties that it can do. We were also talking about vortexing earlier, motion. You know, motion is sort of an abstract word to basically say that everything's moving, everything's changing. You know, you can't move in space unless you move in time. You can't move in time unless you move in space. And of course, space and time are fundamental to our reality here. So really, everything is moving, everything is motion. Electricity and gravity are effects of that cause, of that motion. So moving, counter-rotating, vortexing, force fields like electromagnetism is how you counteract gravity, is how you play around with gravity, and also play around with matter itself.
Well, and you gave the example of salmon, why
Right.
they can swim upstream, right?
Mhm.
That had to do with the vortexes that are created,
Yeah,
and it helps create a different kind of gravity in the area, right?
Exactly. So that's one world example that we can look to, in that, you know, you see salmon when they're going up to spawn, they'll jump up 20-foot waterfall sometimes. You're like, how is that salmon going up? Well, when water is moving and then vortexing as well, especially when it's natural water, living water, not the dead water we have from our taps and faucets, but when it's living water coming from a natural source, and then you spin it, you vortex it, it induces counter-gravity. That's what Victor Schauberger was finding. These salmon, you know, they've been doing what they've been doing for thousands of years, so they instinctually, innately know these sorts of tricks. And because of that gravity well, that lessening of gravity within that part of the river. That's how they're able to skirt up a 20, 30-foot embankment or a 20, 30-foot waterfall.
Wonderful.
Have you had a UFO experience?
Yes,
recently?
yeah. I've had quite a few UFO experiences. I've never had direct contact, so I've never had an actual light being or physical being appear in front of me or anything like that.
Look like Ben get out of one of those.
Right,
vehicles.
totally. Shoot, maybe I'm having an ET contact right now.
You never know.
No, we're not extraterrestrials. We're not. Definitely.
They're normal terrestrials.
Right, exactly.
So, but I have seen many UFOs in the sky. Many.
Yeah, both of us have to.
Yeah, and these weren't, if you see a UFO in the sky, it's the first question that usually pops up, at least in my mind, and it should pop up in your mind, is it ours or theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see this white light in the sky that fades out, it could be a non-terrestrial UFO, non-terrestrial spacecraft, could be a man-made one.
But it's most certainly not a weather balloon.
Or swamp gas.
Swamp
or a
gas is a great
drone.
one.
They're doing drones these days now.
Yeah, now they're saying, oh, it's a drone. It's a drone. It's like drones don't fly.
Well, and to remind everyone, it's like what UFO means is unidentified flying object. It's simply an object in the sky that you can't say, hey, this is a plane, this is whatever, a drone, whatever. It's like something that doesn't take on those characteristics and you don't know what it is. So it could either be extraterrestrial or it's terrestrial, but it was developed by us and we're just not aware of the technology, right?
Right. So you can get into analyzing the situation, so maybe where you're at, what it looked like, what the environment around you was, to extrapolate whether it was one of ours or theirs. So maybe if you're in Southern California or out in the Nevada desert and you're close to some of these bases and whatnot, you see a craft in the sky, maybe it's probably one of ours, But the experiences I had, I was way out in the Washington State forest. I was actually at a ranch that holds Skywatch events where people, they come together. It's ESETI Ranch out there in Washington State. James Gilliland heads that, and that's where most of my UFO experiences have been, was at his ranch during one of his conferences. And at ESETI Ranch, he specifically has that ranch. It's right next to Mount Adams. Beautiful area, very remote, and he has this ranch really specifically for people to go there and have positive experiences with consciousness or with beings that aren't of this world, essentially. So first time I went there, literally every single time I've gone maybe 4, 5, 6 times now to ESETI. Every single time, every single night, you'll see blips in the sky.
Interesting.
And there's different ways that they show themselves, and it's very interesting because it's a conscious interaction. The best way to see UFOs is have the intent, but have a positive intent. And everybody that goes to ESETI goes there with positive intent, look up in the sky, and these ETs, they'll show themselves. You might have a little power up where you get this tiny little white light that you see, and then it powers up for about 5 seconds to this bright white light that's far brighter than a drone or swamp gas or any sort of helicopter could be. There's no blinking, there's no flashing.
Or a weather balloon.
Or a weather balloon.
Or a bird.
They blew it up right there in the upper atmosphere. Light it up, boys!
Yeah.
Then they pop it to make it dematerialize.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so powers up and then it fades out. And then you know that that's not one of ours, that it's some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence there that's basically saying hi, just saying hi. And they could come as power-ups. There's blinkers. They blink. You're like, what was that? 5 seconds later, another blink in the same area. And they kind of play around with you. It's fascinating when you go, especially if you have one of those long lasers that can go up into the sky.
Don't do that near airplanes, though.
Don't do
we
that.
Don't need any of you in federal prison.
So there's been times where I had one of those lasers and you see this tiny little white dot going across the sky and you're like, might be a satellite, might not. Let's check. Get your laser out, you try to shine it on the thing and then it powers up.
Wow.
So it's, like I said, it's like a conscious interaction. It's like they're waiting for you to initiate the contact because free will. They can't. And this is a big question a lot of people have when they're just starting to get into this, especially the ET phenomenon. Why don't they show themselves?
Exactly.
If they're out there, why don't they just land on the White House lawn or all this stuff? It's like,
They're waiting for us.
It's the prime directive. It's the natural law of free will. They're waiting for us to initiate that contact and initiate it in a positive way. You know, we're a very spiritually underdeveloped, spiritually immature civilization here on this planet. You know, that's why we're all here. We're all here to learn and grow and to spiritually evolve. You know, these ETs are here trying to get us to learn how to tie our shoes, to learn how to do basic things before we graduate to a galactic civilization and they end up showing themselves to us and contacting us. They don't want to give us the answers, they want us to find the own answers. Now that's not to say that they've been nudging us and trying to help us along and whatnot. There's the crop circle phenomenon. There's all sorts of hidden messages and symbols that have been left in crops for decades, especially around Europe, but really around the world. You know, you got the Nazca lines and you got the
Nazca
is it the
lines.
Sri Yantra in Oregon as well. So symbols all around the world. You've got people who do get contacted, who come forth with their experiences and whatnot around. A few people do. So there's ways that they're trying to nudge society as a whole very gently, but they're doing so in a non-free will breaking way. You know, they don't break free will when they form a crop circle in a crop, because it's up to you to decide whether you want to research it, believe in it. You know, it's up to you to take whatever you want from that. It's basically your choice to know or not. So yeah, that's the way I think of it. It's a lot deeper than what many people are used to, but it's what makes the most sense to me and what I think they're waiting for open contact. They're just waiting for us to get our crap together.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of saying it, honestly. Explaining a little bit about you, how you started your channel, Destroying the Illusion channel.
Yeah, why
totally.
you do what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot going down. There's not a lot of people talking about QAnon, about the different things that are affecting our society. You came out, I mean, you've got a huge following on YouTube. It's like 174.
About 174.5 now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge following. So like, what is it that why do you do what you do?
So how I got into it, I first started my channel back in 2017, almost exactly 2 years ago to the day. And the reason I did it is just because I was kind of failing at my jobs, to be honest. And at the time, I was personal training. You know, in the few previous years before I started the channel, I was working in various odd jobs around alternative health, personal training, things like that. And it got to a point where I was just unfulfilled. I was working with maybe 3-4 clients a day. Those 3-4 clients were just there to really, I mean, as a personal trainer, most people are there just to look good. They're not there to actually get healthier or learn things. So I was unfulfilled because I didn't have people who wanted to learn, and I wasn't talking about all these things I was researching. I was just showing people how to lift weights better. So naturally, I kind of mutually broke up with the job that I was at. I pretty much just decided to quit and start my YouTube channel, and I just jumped. You know, I quit my jobs. I took the leap of faith and started doing videos. And luckily at the time, towards the end of 2016 and beginning of 2017, I got in touch and befriended a guy named Justin Deschamps. He runs the Stillness in the Storm blog, and he was nice enough to let me write a couple articles for his blog. I think I wrote 5 or 6 articles for him, but I realized that I wasn't a writer, and it took me, God, I don't know how many hours just to write a 600-word article, and it wasn't that good. So with my previous experience of talking to people and educating them and being more vocal rather than written, I began to realize like maybe video will be a better avenue to get information across and do something with. So I ended up one day, just kind of like you guys started Edge of Wonder, just talking one day like, maybe this is a good idea, I guess. Okay. Same thing with me. I started my channel and I started doing videos, and Justin was nice enough to let me post my videos on his blog. So that's how I initially started gaining a little bit of traction. People were finding my videos through his blog. And then I also just did some various, you know, marketing skills. What I was picking up from trying to start my own personal training business before, I just utilized those skills and those techniques that I was learning towards the destroying the illusion brand that I had created. So I think I joined like literally 50 Facebook groups, and every single video I made I posted to my Destroying the Illusion Facebook page, and I would share it into as many groups as I could, even if the groups kicked me out for sharing stuff in there or it wasn't even really related to the topic of the video. I didn't care. I just shared it as much as I could and tried to network as much as I could. So that's pretty much how it blew up. You know, it was just the back end stuff. You know, people see these videos, they see the videos you guys do, and it only, you know, 5% of our time is really in front of a camera. 95% of your time is on a computer, either editing, uploading, doing the keywords, or sharing it around,
or playing practical jokes on Ben and Dan, because that's what I offer.
Or photoshopping people's faces, like Jordan mean things to them. God. So yeah, and that's how it grew.
Stay tuned for more from the edge.
It kind of became where I started seeing the state of the world, right? And not only did I want to educate people about themselves, about health, about these things I was interested in, like space and free energy and UFOs and whatnot, but I also saw the political scene, the current events going on. And of course, in very early 2017, we just had the election that catalyzed the public. They were very confused, and we had a lot of weird stuff going on. So I was like, you know, I can become like a news source. I can track this and give people information, but also give people my opinion and be honest about that. You know, I'll be honest when it's my opinion or information I'm putting out, but I would just try to find what's going on behind the scenes, try to see what's going on behind the scenes, and then share that through YouTube. So that's what I began doing, and that's kind of what gained a lot of traction. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jordan Sather here. One of my first videos about 4 or 5 months in, I called it Trump and Putin Trolling the World, and that was one of the first videos that I did on a whiteboard. I just had a basic $30 Staples whiteboard behind me, and I did this video called Trump and Putin Trolling the World, where I was deducing this situation. I'm like, you know, I don't think they're bad guys. I think they're actually trying to take down this cabal or take down this deep state. And that video just exploded. It got like 100,000 plus views. And then that whiteboard just became so simple to be able to convey thoughts and do videos with. So I did quite a few videos with that, kind of became known with that, and that's when the subscriber count really began growing. And then in the summer of 2017, I went to a few conferences, and you know, I met Corey, I met James Gilliland. I did a lot of interviews just with people all across the spectrum, not just in the ufology realm, but you know, many different truthing communities. And that's that. That was how it started, and why it started. Just, you know, I can't stand people being duped, and I can't stand people who not that I can't stand it, but it's disappointing when you see people who can't think properly. They're not,
or think for themselves.
or think for themselves, exactly. They're taking in whatever they hear, whether it's sensational clickbait or this fake news mainstream media, and they're getting caught up with it, and it just like breaks my heart to see that. So I wanted to try to help people learn how to think and not what to think.
Yeah, and also research correctly too, because it's like, oh, well, if CNN said this, then that must be true, and I don't need to look anything up, or they just go to Snopes, and it's like that's the end of the research.
Right, it's the end of the research, not just in the mainstream realm, but you know, me starting my channel in 2017 wasn't when I woke up. I woke up probably 5-6 years previous, so for a long time I was researching what was going on in alternative media and making all these connections. So I was like, man, I gotta share this stuff. I gotta show people how much not just the mainstream media sucks, but how much the alternative media can suck, and how much controlled opposition there is in the alt realm, in the truthing communities.
Well, and I think all three of us talked to so many people this weekend that are researching an enormous amount. Like they had a similar experience to you, where they like woke up or whatever, spent night after night researching this stuff, and it's like, it's great that you came out to show people what you were finding, because a lot of people just sit on the research, or they're scared to come out about it, or they don't know if they have an outlet. But just like putting yourself out there like that and just being like, no, this isn't going to be a block for me. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get this information out there. I'm going to try to clean the environment up. I mean, that's taking a huge responsibility in your hands, and it's like, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I really did it purposely on YouTube because I wanted to show my face. I wanted to put my name out there. I wanted to be as authentic as possible, because I find that to be completely lacking. It's growing now, I mean, you guys are doing it, you're putting your names and faces out there, you're just saying, hey, I believe in these things, I'm not scared to show it, I'm not gonna hide behind an avatar and articles on the internet and be a keyboard warrior. I'm actually gonna go out there, go to events, show my name and face, and do the work.
Or robot voice.
Or robot voice.
I might be able to do that voice.
He can do that voice.
Prefer not to.
Yeah, and you know, another big reason I did my channel was not just to educate, but just to simply inspire people and make them feel better, make them feel like they had someone to connect with. Because when I was waking up in 2013, 13 was a tough year, 14, those years there, I was going through my own dark night of the soul, and of course, I'm sure you guys can relate, and people watching, you get ostracized. You start at the beginning of your awakening experience, if you don't have a support system around you or people you can connect with or on that same path with you, your friends and family and business relationships and personal relationships will start gravitating away, and that happened to me. And one of the only outlets I had was watching YouTube videos of various individuals who thought like I thought. They were saying the same things that I started believing, and that's one of the only ways I could connect with somebody at that time, was through somebody on YouTube that I'd never met in person. They didn't know who I was, but it's just, wow, I mean, this sounds legit, and they think the same way. So I felt better. I didn't feel so alone. So I figured if I started doing this YouTube channel talking about all this crazy stuff, that people out there who were in those positions of isolation were going to find somebody that maybe they could connect with, and it would help them feel a little bit better.
You know, I mean, that just goes, because I know for a fact there's so many people watching this, because we have fans that even have commented saying, I want to create a YouTube channel, but you know, it's just me, and like, who's gonna watch what I'm doing, and how can I, you know, I don't think it's gonna even get started, or they're actually thinking about this a little bit more. And so what would you tell those people that, I mean, because we just encourage everyone, if you're really into this, you have a heart to do it. And I think that's the most important, having a heart to do something like this. Just, it's like the longer you put it off, nothing's gonna happen, right? So what would you tell those people?
Hey, I am still a one-man shop. You know, that's how I started, that's how I still am. And if it's just you, it's just you. Just like you said, all you need is heart. All you need is a sort of drive. Follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say. I love to read Joseph Campbell books. And if you just have a passion and desire to wake people up and you want to, all you need is a YouTube channel. Use your iPhone. You know, I think for the first 9 months of my channel, all I used was my iPhone 6, and I had no audio, had no fancy equipment.
That was a pretty crappy version of the iPhone too.
Right, and that was a pretty crappy version of my YouTube channel. so it you don't need fancy equipment, you don't need fancy production. Production helps. I mean, these guys' channel's fantastic and it helps get it out to the mainstream masses, but you don't need that, you know?
Especially on YouTube. I mean, that is the bridge between professional TV and, like, you know, warriors kind of going out there to try to tell the truth.
Totally. And these days, people are really looking for substance. Like, they don't necessarily care as much about production value or how it looks. They want information. They want somebody who's, you know, not a douche, basically, on the other side of the screen.
Look at Drudge Report. What a terrible place to try to find news. That environment is like 1994.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a website from 20 years ago, but God, how much play does Drudge get?
Content is king.
Totally. And the reason your guys' channel is blowing up so fast is because not only do you have production value, but you have great content. So if you can match those two, boom, you're good, but at the same time, you don't need it. And also, even though you don't have the skills, the only way to get skills is to do the thing.
Do it.
Do it. You know, I'm a bit better of a video editor than I used to be. I'm much better of a speaker than I used to be. I'm much better, I mean, it's growth. It's changed.
And if you don't
know?
believe that, watch the first video of Edge of Wonder that Ben really wants us to take down, because it's terrible. And you'll see how far we've come from that video.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, we've never really done this before either. I mean, I've only been in front of my iPhone, Facebook Live stuff, you know, and it was just whatever, you know. But the first time we really came together, and I was just like, oh, this is not gonna work, this is a disaster, you know. But I was getting a lot of encouragement from everyone, and then Rob, that's when, like, we came together and we're like, okay, let's do this together, not just me anymore, you know, we really need two of us, and I think that helped a lot.
Totally. And find other people, you know, find some sort of mentor who's doing what you want to be doing. And a mentor doesn't mean you have to meet the person and know them and have them take you under your wing. You can find mentors on YouTube that you never met before, but it's somebody doing something in a direction that you want to be going in. So study them, study how they're marketing, study how they're doing their craft, study, you know, there's a lot of information out there you can self-study with. A lot of the, so many of the techniques that I use, you know, whether it's the public speaking I do, or whether it's the video editing I do, or whether it's the marketing I do, a lot of that's just watching YouTube videos, just studying. Like, man, I want to succeed, so I'm going to figure out how by getting the knowledge necessary to do that and then applying it.
I just want to make a point. If you get a chance to see Jordan present in person, it's like a different level. It's like
it's much different than my YouTube videos. You know,
it's awesome.
I try to be. I'm a little more entertaining on YouTube, quite frankly, but when it's in person, it's a little different. It's a little more. What would you guys describe?
Direct.
A little
bit more direct and more. Just very precise, you know.
Right, it's precise, and like following your train of thought through each slide is like it's a different experience than seeing you on YouTube. It's like it's a really great experience. It's like something you guys definitely want to do.
Yeah, having an audience in front of you is actually a little easier, to be honest. It's more difficult to talk to a camera because you're not getting the reaction of the people. You don't know if they're laughing at you, or if it's ridiculous, or if you're making sense, or anything like that.
Or if they're yelling at you in the camera.
Or if they hate you and want you to shut up. So actually, I think talking in front of an audience is easier than a camera.
Well,
if you don't get the trolls.
Yeah, exactly. That is very true. I mean, and I did some acting in high school, and so I was actually, when we first did the show, this was really the first time I was in front of a camera, and I just. It was so hard. That's why that first show was just so hard to do. Because
it's not that bad.
Yeah,
it really isn't.
But I just felt such a disconnect because it was just me and a camera, and it's like you know, we had 0 followers at the time. We didn't even start the channel yet. So it's like, who am I speaking to? What am I doing? You know, what's going on? And when you're in front of a live audience, you can kind of feel where everyone is going too. If they're following you, if they're really engaged.
If they're laughing at your jokes, if they're not laughing at your jokes.
If they're not laughing, then you're like, okay, I think I'm gonna get off the stage pretty soon. So
we're gonna wrap things up here with Jordan.
Yeah. Anything. Definitely check out Destroying the Illusion on YouTube, and you're also featured in Above Majestic.
Yes, so Destroying the Illusion on YouTube. If they decide to censor me again at any point,
you'll be coming on Edge of Wonder.
Yeah. So no, I've got Destroying the Illusion 2.0 on YouTube as well. I've got a website, jordansather.com. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter as well. Above Majestic was a documentary that just came out a few months ago, and I was a part of the production and the filming in that. Very fun to put together.
Yeah, one of the greatest documentaries, out there right now.
There was a lot of information that we got in that documentary that's never been in a documentary before. A lot of darker things, dark occult things that
in history
aren't often discussed but need to be discussed. History, we talked about the missing Pentagon money, we talked about a lot of the space programs. We got some William Tompkins testimony in that. So Above Majestic was very fun to film. We did it very ghetto, filming it in hotel rooms, just like we're filming this now, you know. But that was the process we had to go through because we didn't have money to do it. It was a shoestring budget, but we did it and came out, and people have been loving it. So Above Majestic, you can find it really on all major platforms.
iTunes, Amazon.
Not on Netflix, but I think it's on Vimeo. There's a few others too, so just type it in and it'll come up for you. And other than that, you know, working on various projects coming up, new documentaries in the works, back in the mind right now, and some other things too. So
Great. So
Yeah.
so that's going to be coming out in the near future.
Yep.
I take it.
Totally.
So definitely like and subscribe to Jordan's YouTube channel. That's Destroying the Illusion. Also, if you like this content, like and subscribe to our channel, Edge of Wonder. And we really appreciate you guys checking this video out. And Jordan, thank you so much for being here. We really
Thanks, guys.
appreciate it.
Really awesome.
Feel free to come on whenever you want. Let's collab more.
Yeah,
and-
we'll definitely go to all these cool places.
Yeah,
in the
like
future.
when we do that Tesla video or whatever,
Yeah.
we got to do that, and we can have videos on each other's channels and stuff, and like
Sweet.
make it
Yeah.
really fun.
totally.
So, all right, guys, thank you very much, and until next time, we'll see you out.
On the edge.
Yes.